97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You hear the music, you know it's time for Kurt Helin from NBC Sports and ProBasketballTalk.com. Kurt, how are you?
Kurt.
I'm doing good. I was having a better conversation with Lloyd, so if you can just put me back on hold, I'll go with no.
Hey, you know what?
We'll let you and Lloyd just take it away.
Yeah, no.
I appreciate that, Kurt.
You know, I'll be honest, our listeners send tweets and texts all the time and say, well, we enjoy Lloyd's conversation more anyway. So.
More Lloyd, less you guys.
Kurt, I don't know how much he paid you to say that, but it's not worth it. I'm just telling you.
I don't know. Now, you guys haven't done what the new thing going around for those of us who have NBA, awards votes. You usually get. I got something from the Jazz promoting Isaiah Collier, and you get sometimes just emails, sometimes little packages and things. But apparently, the Wizards are sending out ice cream to try to get you to vote for their rookies. And I'm like, "Where's mine, man?" I rarely ever ask for this stuff. I'm like, "Where's my ice cream, baby?"
Hey.
If I got a house full of daughters and a wife, ice cream will really help me here.
Well, I mean, let's be honest here. It was, last time we talked to you in person, it was like 20 degrees outside of our building, and we were giving you ice cream, and you were more than happy to take it off our hands. Yeah,
exactly. There's never a bad time for ice cream.
Kurt, speaking of having some NBA votes, does last night's performance of Nikola Jokic, does it change maybe where your MVP vote goes?
I still haven't flipped the coin on that one. Having those signature moments absolutely helps and makes a point, and it's so tough because both have been so exceptional this year. And I know Tim Bontemps from ESPN had his straw poll, which came out that I'm not part of his straw poll, but I think it's generally pretty accurate, and it's a lean towards everybody I know is torn, and they're leaning one way or another. When I wrote a couple of weeks ago, I leaned towards Shea. But Jokic, that was a little right after he came back, and Jokic has been unbelievable since he came back and was again last night. And if a guy's won 3 MVPs and now he's having his best season, it's really hard not to vote for him. So I don't quite know where I'm going to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tough one for sure. But that game last night, Jokic was just phenomenal. But in the end, Russ is going to Russ, and that's essentially what did in the Nuggets.
The blown layup when Russ – and look, Russ is a smart player. You pull it out there, right?
Yeah.
You've got less than 10 seconds to go. Make them waste a couple seconds chasing you down to foul you. Make your free throws, and you're fine. And he blows the layup somehow, and that just becomes the mess going the other way. Then the foul in the corner was – there's been a couple of those this season where you're like, oh, dude, you're closing out on a game winner. You got to be careful, man.
I will tell you, though, when you have action like that between the T-Wolves and the Nuggets, that's what the NBA needs. And what is that, 6 straight now? Timberwolves beating the Nuggets?
Yes, yes.
Bit of an axe to grind?
We were just saying, a few of us were talking about it was the Laker-Rockets game, and we were like, hey, this has a playoff feel, and we started talking about the West. If the playoffs started today, the Clippers are playing great basketball, and they're the 8th seed. They're 11 games over 500. They have a top 3 defense. They are a tough out, and I don't think they beat Oklahoma City in a series. But man, there's no easy series in the West in the first round. It is 8 versus 1. You're going to have to work for it.
Yeah, I know that the win-loss may not be competitive, but I would take 7 games of the Nuggets and the Timberwolves tomorrow. Give me all of that. Yeah,
well, that was a great series last year. This is a team that just seems to have their number, and yes, that would be a lot of fun. But then I said the same thing. Like I said, watching Lakers Rockets, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take 7 games of that was a really entertaining game, and so yeah, the last night was also a reminder with Denver, as great as Jokic is, they have to have Jamal Murray, and they have to have very good Jamal Murray if they're going to do anything.
Yeah.
We were talking with David Locke yesterday, and we were going back and forth on the 3 and the 4 seed. Is there any way that the Lakers can avoid the 4 seed? Because I I think the Lakers are at least going to be in the Western Conference Finals, and David believes only if they can avoid the 4 seed. So what happens 3 and 4 seed?
Once again, David is right.
Let's just
don't
not,
tell him
just,
I said that.
Yeah, we won't. Trust me. No worries there.
We don't need to boost his ego. But
yeah.
It's going to be interesting in the final days if when it push comes to shove, a couple of teams consider falling back to 6 or pushing for 3, depending on their situation, to get on the other side of the bracket and avoid OKC for as long as possible, because the Lakers are a team that kind of matches up with them better than most, just because they've got size across the board. That is the Lakers. I was writing about this. They play small, quote unquote, because they don't have a traditional center out there, because their only center right now is really Jackson Hayes. So they play small, but small is Rui Hachimura and LeBron James and a bunch of 6'9", 6'10" mobile athletic guys who are very physical. They're not small. And I think they match up better with OKC in some ways, but they still keep losing to them. I don't think they have their number, and I think the longer you can avoid OKC, the better.
So we're all in capture the flag mode. We're all about Cooper Flagg, especially watching him in the NCAA tournament. It's just been phenomenal to watch. But again, the Jazz can have the worst record, second worst record, third. They're still at 14%. That's 1 of 10 chance of getting Cooper Flagg. So in your mind, how much of a drop is it off of number 1 to where's the next tier, and how significant is that drop off?
It's not huge. I think the next 3 guys are potential all-stars, where I think Cooper Flagg is. And this is talking to scouts more than my untrained eye. Cooper's potential All-NBA, maybe potential top 5 player in the league someday. He could develop into that guy. When you get to Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper and Edgecombe, you're talking about future all-stars, and maybe they can make an All-NBA. But I don't think the drop-off is those guys can be absolutely part of whatever's next. Then the drop-off kind of starts at 5, where, and I'm saying drop-off, I think somebody between 5 and 15 is going to turn out, or 5 and 20 maybe, is going to turn out to be really, really good, and we just didn't see it coming. But no, there are just more flaws in everybody's game right there. So that's kind of where the drop-off is. If you're in the top 4, you get a guy who is part of whatever gets built in Utah. Whatever it looks like 5 years from now, I think if you're in the top 4, you've got a cornerstone piece of that.
Who's the better number 1 right now? Paolo Banchero or Victor Wembanyama?
Right now, look, it's Victor. He's still, I think we've talked about this. He's would have won Defensive Player of the Year this year if he hadn't gotten hurt. He was starting to put up putting up numbers every game, and the analogy I keep using, he still looks like Neo in the first hour of The Matrix, where he just has it. He's still figuring out how to do everything he can do, and it's just he's got a great work ethic. So as great as Banchero is, and I don't want to knock him, because I think he has looked fantastic, and Orlando's back to playing really well with him as the primary creator. Wembanyama's just like, look, man, I should start booking hotel rooms in San Antonio for future finals. He's just going to have them there for years.
Why do we have to go back so far to find a number 1 overall pick that stayed with the team and won a championship? I think it goes back to Kyrie Irving.
Is he? I was going to say I'd have to think about that.
I think, Scotty, was that who it was?
Yeah.
We were looking at that earlier, but I think it was Kyrie Irving.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. I think part of it is often like last year. Nothing against Zachary Risacher, but like every year, the number 1 pick isn't necessarily going to be a future franchise cornerstone guy. They don't always turn out. They usually turn out to be good, but not always great. The other part of that is, in general, you can get drafted onto some bad franchises. Like the teams that are there, every year, Wizards, I don't want to name names, but there seems to be a lot. You just drafted into a situation where the organization isn't going to build the team right. The owner's not going to spend enough. It's just you're put in a position where even if you are great, you can only lift them so far. So I think that ends up holding some guys back. And not every organization is built to win like that, or even sometimes the owner gets to the point where they're profitable and they don't care anymore. Like they don't. Yeah. If I'm not gonna. Again, I don't want to name names, but there are ownership groups out there very happy to be profitable and not care that much about winning.
When you look at some of the talent across the NBA and where they were selected and where they were picked, there certainly is value where in that 5 to 15 range, and there's guys that you can pick up that can be special, but I got to imagine when you're the Jazz and you're looking at Cooper Flagg, if you snag him, if the lottery balls line up, that doesn't mean that you're out of the rebuild stage. I mean, you look at San Antonio, they're 2 years past Victor, and they're still not sniffing the playoffs. And, I had somebody within the Jazz organization tell me the other day, like, hey, look, we're just barely coming out of we're just barely midway through the first quarter of this rebuild. People think Cooper, and then we're done. We're ready to go. And that's not necessarily the case.
No, first off, even the best rookies only impact winning so much, right? Like you still have to learn the NBA game. You still have to round out your game and physically grow into your body. Like even I'm trying to think who were great rookies, but like LeBron and Wemby and all these guys had to grow into this stuff. The other part of it is you still haven't built the roster around them where you need to go. Part of the conversation with Lloyd you were not privy to was simply that. Like I'm going when we talk next week. I will be in Portland for the Nike Hoop Summit with a bunch of the top kids coming in, high school seniors, boys and girls, coming into college next year. And you're going to be you're going to be, even if you get Cooper Flagg, you're not going to be great next year. Like it's still going to be, you're a couple of years away. It gives you hope. It gives you things you can see growth-wise. But next year's draft might be deeper and better. I don't know about better than Flagg, but deeper at the top and very good, just like this one, even more so, even deeper. And if you're bad while you're rebuilding and you can see signs, but you struggle a little bit and you get a couple of those guys in a draft and you get a little bit lucky, then you're halfway there. Then suddenly you have the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum foundation. I mean, those guys obviously worked out pretty well, but like you get a couple of guys in the draft and suddenly you've got the foundation for what you're trying to build.
Give me the closest comparable, Kevin Love or Kawhi Leonard?
For Flagg? More Kawhi, but he's I think more Kawhi just because of the defense. Like Cooper Flagg's a really good defender, but a very different type of player than Kawhi developed into. Kawhi's he's not the shot blocker that Cooper Flagg is. He's not a rim protector in that sense. He's an elite perimeter defender, and Kawhi's game is so based on strength, and you can't stop him from getting to the position he wants to on the floor, then you can't stop him from scoring there. And by the way, he's playing like that. If you watched him the last few weeks, like he's back to looking like that Kawhi. Cooper strikes me as a little more fluid than that, and maybe a little more Kevin Love in his game than that, like peak Kevin Love, not current Kevin Love's fantastic on social media, but like peak Kevin Love the player was also really good. So I think stylistically he's a little more that, but I think the defense, I think he might be a little more Kawhi.
Is there somebody out there in the NCAA tournament that's really enhanced their stock? Derek Queen kind of comes to mind. Yeah. Is there other players that may have elevated their status based on what they've been able to do in the tournament?
Queen was the first guy who comes to mind, and then because I'm sitting here not in front of my computer, the BYU kid whose name escapes me.
Damon Yeager.
Yeah, Yeager. Yeah, just getting them on a run, I think, and playing in those big moments helps his cause. Hey, that's one of those. Hey, again, you're looking out once you get past that first 8, where Utah is looking like, man, I will draft the upside guy, right?
Yeah.
Especially with some of the swaps that are going to kick in, where Oklahoma City could have the number 7 pick through the 76ers, which would be hysterical on a intellectual level and probably not that much fun for Philly fans. But they could draft someone because they're going to start. There's a lot of teams that will be drafting in the top 10, looking in the lottery, looking for guys who can walk in and just play minutes. And I think that's where he comes in. He looks like a guy who can help you more now rather than I'm drafting this guy based on a development process where I think he's a couple years away. And sometimes that's the right move depending on where you are in the draft. Giannis Antetokounmpo was a couple years away. I think that worked out pretty well, but you've got to be in the right position to do it.
Kurt, last thing for me, the Dallas Mavericks are in the news for everything you don't want to be in the news for lately.
Exactly.
And it's just getting worse and worse. It's actually a couple-part question just to kind of wrap this up for me. Number one, you saw this whole interaction between the fan and Nico Harrison, where the fan was yelling, "Nico, fire Nico," and somebody grabbed the phone and smashed it. Now he's claiming that he's being mistreated as a fan. I want to get your thoughts on just fan treatment and what you're hearing out of Dallas. And then I was listening to Mark Cuban say that he lost money as a Dallas Mavericks owner trying to keep tickets affordable. It just feels like everything that's coming out of Dallas Mavericks, anything, is just disturbing and disgusting.
I will start here. The losing money thing is always a little it's hard because the NBA books aren't open and we don't know. And the other part of that that's not counted in, if you can, you're not counting the franchise valuation in that, right? Like if you break even or lose a little money every year, but your product is growing in value by 10 or 15%, then you're not losing money per se. I think Cuban did okay with what he bought it for and what he sold it for. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's that whole situation has been, and there's a line there where I don't know. I'm a little old school, like yelling "fire Nico" to Nico's face is a little over the top, a little rude, but it also wasn't. You didn't cuss at him. You didn't. There's stuff that crosses a line where you'll see players kind of like, "Hey, you can't go there, man. You leave my family out of this," type of thing. Where I think that at that point you've really crossed the line as a fan. But I don't know. The Mavericks have been it's like a new Coke, isn't it? Like if somebody's going to teach a class about like, hey, this is what you don't do. like everything they have done has just felt wrong in Dallas and angered the fans, and it's compounded a trade that nobody thinks is very good and made it feel that much worse just because mistake after mistake afterwards.
When you think of Val Kilmer, do you think of Iceman or Doc Holliday?
Jim Morrison.
Oh, the Doors. Good pull. Yeah, no, that's
he was great in the Doors, but yeah, it's funny. Nothing again. Top Gun's a great movie, but he was a tour de force as Doc Holliday. Like he is just brilliant in that movie. Yeah. And he had a lot of movies where he was he's kind of a more independent, smaller films. He didn't just do the blockbusters where he had really great roles opposite people. And I have seen him around LA a little bit a few times because he used to be married to Exene Cervenka, the lead singer of the band X, for a long, or they at least dated and were together for a long time. So he'd be at their shows, and that's a band I went and saw a lot in my youth.
Wow. So there we go. See, I knew with your Southern California ties that, look, you could map out one of those maps of the stars tour maps. So, I figured.
Yeah, you end up, if you just live out here, you end up, and I imagine this is true in New York and some other places where you just, and you're at a bar, and oh, hey, that's where Kiefer Sutherland hangs out sometimes, or whomever, right? Like just people that just kind of hang out, and you try to treat them normally and hope everyone else does.
Well, every now and then we'll pull up to a gas station and Donnie Marie will be there. So that's our brush with greatness out here.
Or Posty.
Actually, that'd be.
Posty does live out here.
Post Malone.
That's true. Yep.
Does he? Does he live in?
Mm-hmm.
He's up in Park City though. He doesn't mess around with us little people down here in the valley.
Still, he'd be. Let's put it this way: if I were next to Donnie at a gas pump, I'd be kind of like double taking. Like, I think I know him. I think Post Malone I'd recognize. He stands out.
He kind of stands out in a crowd. There's for sure.
Yeah.
Kurt, you're the best, man. We appreciate it.
Take care.
There he is, Kurt Helin, NBC Sports, ProBasketballTalk.com, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, right here on the Zone.